Hello guys and welcome back. If you are new around here, I cover mostly Australian true crime cases, and today we are covering another solved case. And this case, fair warning, is a truly horrendous one. It is, in my opinion, Australia's Chris Watts case. It is sickening. Having said that, let's get into the Sharpe family killings. Anna Marie Kemp was born on the 27th of September 1962 in Dunedin, New Zealand. As an adult, Anna decided to make the move from New Zealand to Australia, settling down in the city of Melbourne. Anna got a job as a bank teller at the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, where she met a man named John Sharpe. John Sharpe was born on the 28th of February 1967 and was raised in the Mornington area of Melbourne. John Sharpe grew up with 5 siblings and his parents, who owned and ran a candy store. He was shy and socially awkward in high school and didn't have a lot of friends, a pattern that would continue into his adulthood. After school, he began working at the Commonwealth Bank, where he met Anna Kemp in the early 1990s. John and Anna soon started dating, and Anna was actually 4 years older than John. While Anna was 31, John was 27. And it wasn't long before Anna and John were actually engaged, much to the surprise of her family, who felt that possibly she was rushing into marriage because she had just hit her 30s and may have felt those pressures to get married and have children. By October 30th of 1994, the couple were married. It was a small wedding of around 40 guests, including Anna's family from New Zealand, who were not particularly fond of Anna's new husband, John Sharpe. They felt as though John just wasn't good enough for their Anna. When John and Anna returned from their honeymoon, Anna actually confessed to her mother she felt she had made a mistake marrying John, telling her mother there was little love and passion between them as a husband and wife. However, Anna, who was a committed Catholic, pushed aside her feelings about John and tried to make their marriage work. They spent their marriage living in various parts of Melbourne's Mornington Peninsula area, and 7 years after getting married, the couple found out they were pregnant and they were going to have a little girl. It was late 2001 by this point, and Anna was over the moon. However, John did not feel the same way. In fact, he was pretty angry and he made it quite clear how he felt about the situation. Kids were not in his plan. In August of 2002, Gracie Louise Sharpe was born. Little Gracie was born with hip dysplasia, which in layman's terms is a problem with how a baby's hips develop, but it can be corrected orthopedically using a corrective harness. The hip dysplasia caused Gracie to cry often and have trouble sleeping, due to how uncomfortable the harness was, I imagine. Anna, who by all accounts was an incredible mother, did not view this as a burden and nursed her beautiful little girl back to health. The situation with their daughter, however, did put a strain on the couple's marriage. I suspect because John Sharpe was no longer the focus of Anna's life, he felt frustrated and jealous, particularly as Gracie needed a lot of special attention in those first few months of her life. Even after Gracie began to recover from the hip dysplasia and no longer required the harness necessary to improve her hip development, Gracie still did have a lot of trouble sleeping and feeding, which continued to affect their marriage. Anna did eventually leave her job at the bank to become a full-time stay-at-home mum with Gracie. At this time, John also began a home-based conveyancing business. Now, John and Anna, leading up to this time, had actually bought, renovated and sold several homes in the area in which they lived, and they'd made quite a decent profit off of doing this, which meant that John could start his own business and Anna could become a stay-at-home mum to little Gracie. In late 2003, the Sharpes purchased a home in Mornington on 116 Prince Street. Shortly after the purchase of their home, Anna found out she was pregnant for the second time. This time, she was pregnant with a little boy, who she named pretty early on, and his name was Francis. Her husband John, however, was pretty surprised by this second pregnancy. Unlike Anna, who was overjoyed and had always wanted a little brother or sister for Gracie, John was less than impressed. Again, John had apparently decided after Gracie that he didn't want any more children. He already viewed Gracie as a burden to himself, his life, and his marriage. He quickly began to resent his unborn son, Francis, and his wife. And just as a side note, I don't understand how you can be shocked, surprised, or angry when your wife falls pregnant if you have been intimate at any point in your marriage. I don't know what their situation was, if they were using any sort of contraceptive, but I think being angry or surprised is a peculiar reaction. Even if you had not wanted that child, it shouldn't be like shocking to you. Like, pregnancy can happen if you are intimate. The following year, on the 21st of March 2004, which was a Sunday, the Sharpe family were attending a family function. At this point, Anna was 5 months pregnant, and those at the family function said the couple appeared normal. There was no tension between them despite the frustration, anger, disagreements the pair were having about the second pregnancy. It was basically a day like any other. 2 days later, however, Anna Sharpe would disappear. The last person to hear from Anna was her family's healthcare provider over the phone. At around 2 p.m. on the 23rd of March, Anna phoned their healthcare provider to ask that their new family addition be added to their healthcare policy. Anna's mother had also phoned the Sharpe family residence that night, but her phone call had gone unanswered. According to John Sharpe, Anna had left him for another man, and he didn't know where she had gone or who she was staying with. Little Gracie was still in the care of John at this point. John told Anna's worried friends and family to try contacting Anna on her mobile phone. As soon as friends and family heard that Anna had left without Gracie, they had a really unsettling feeling about the whole situation. They did not believe for 1 second that Anna would leave her now 20-month-old daughter behind. Particularly Anna's mother, who knew from what Anna had told her that Gracie and her father didn't have a close bond. In fact, John barely seemed to even care about his only daughter. Anna was highly unlikely that Anna would leave Gracie in his care. Friends and family of Anna's simply just didn't believe she would get up and leave her marriage, particularly for another man, and this also went against her religious beliefs as a Catholic. Those close to Anna, however, did know that the couple were not the happy couple that they may have appeared to be from the outside. On the outside, Anna and John were in a long-term marriage. They had a beautiful young daughter, another on the way, and had just purchased a brand new home. Realistically, they were both very unhappy in their marriage, and John had made it incredibly clear to Anna that not only did he not want a second child, he pretty much resented his unborn son. Anna had actually threatened John if he didn't change his attitude about their second child, she would leave him. The day after Anna went missing, John took Gracie to her childcare centre and picked her up. He told the childcare centre that Gracie would not be returning. That same day, a TV serviceman turned up at the Sharpe family home that had been pre-arranged by Anna, and this unexpected visitor was quite a surprise to John. And John pretty much refused to let him in the home and do his work, which was pretty strange to this TV serviceman. On the 29th of March, almost a week after Anna disappeared, Anna's family in New Zealand actually received an email from Anna telling all of them that she was doing just fine. The email outlined her marriage breakdown with John, her life with her new partner, and how happy she was. She also requested from her family that she be left alone and given some privacy during this time as she was settling into her new life. The email, instead of putting her family's minds at ease, further raised their concerns about her lack of contact with them. They didn't believe that Anna would tell them such important news or information through email. They felt she was far more likely to text them, call them, or even visit them in New Zealand. Because I mean, if you are leaving your husband for another man, that's pretty big news just to be emailing your family. Anna's family could also not get a hold of her on her mobile phone, and it had been John that had told her friends and family to contact her on her mobile phone, but she wasn't picking up or responding to any texts or calls. Anna's mother Lily actually went to their local family priest to speak with him about their concerns, their family's concerns about Anna. And it was actually the priest that went to the New Zealand police to report Anna Sharpe missing. At first, the New Zealand investigators suspected Anna may have been ashamed of leaving her husband for another man, being from a Catholic family. Regardless, the New Zealand police contacted the Australian police after the report was made to further investigate her disappearance. Australian police were immediately concerned that a pregnant woman, a 5-month pregnant woman, and her daughter were missing, as Anna had no history of running away or being an irresponsible mother, sister, friend or daughter. Anna's family would go on to receive a second email from Anna that again really sounded nothing like Anna. And once again they reported this to the police as well. On the 28th of March, John Sharpe told Anna's friends and family that Anna had come to pick up Gracie in a taxi and was living with her new partner. However, when investigators checked records of every taxi company in that area from the 28th of March, there was no record of anyone making a pickup or drop off from the Sharpe family residence. John even stated to Anna's friends and family that the baby she was pregnant with was not his, but it was Anna's new partner's baby. In May, Anna's mother Lily received flowers and a card for her birthday and for Mother's Day combined, and the card was signed from Anna saying, you know, happy birthday, happy Mother's Day, and the flowers had been purchased with Anna's credit card. But her mother Lily did not believe for 1 second that these flowers or the card had come from her daughter. Investigators also discovered that not only had there been activity on Anna's bank cards, but there had been activity on her mobile phone since her disappearance back in March. On the 19th of May, which was about 2 months since Anna and Gracie had disappeared, police released information to the public about their disappearances. The police or the investigators told the public that there had been activity on Anna's credit cards, but they had no evidence or proof or any CCTV footage to suggest that it had been Anna that had been using her bank cards. John Sharpe spoke with the media at his home about his wife and daughter's disappearance. He appeared on national television stating, "Anna, our marriage may be over, but I still love you, and you are still the mother of our beautiful daughter, Gracie, whom we both adore more than anyone else." John Sharpe pleaded with the public for anyone with information to come forward. John's mother, Valerie, even invited the media to come inside to their family home to interview herself and John. However, John continued to get up and leave the interview, appearing visibly upset. Valerie, who supported and believed in her son, took how upset he was as further proof that he was innocent. I'll insert some footage here of John speaking with the media.
"Our marriage may be over, but I still love you, as you are the mother of our beautiful daughter Gracie, whom we both adore more than anyone else. I haven't harmed my wife or my daughter. I haven't harmed either of them. If they could just come forward, and even if you don't ring me, just the media or police or her family."
On the 10th of June, police interviewed John Sharpe, but he maintained his original story that his wife had taken his daughter and run away with another man. And John Sharpe insisted to investigators that the fact that his wife's phone had been active in recent months was proof that she was alive and well out there with her new partner. John was eventually put under police surveillance, and this is when he was spotted approaching some bushes outside of a public toilet block in the Mornington Peninsula area. From these bushes, John retrieved a plastic bag, and out of the plastic bag, he took a bank card, put the plastic bag back in the bushes, and left the scene. Investigators, of course, who had been watching him, went to the bush to investigate what had been in that plastic bag. And in that plastic bag, they found Anna's mobile phone and credit card, or Visa card, I believe. Almost 2 weeks later, on June the 22nd, police arrested John Sharpe and interviewed him again for a total of 11 hours. Initially, he stuck to his original story as he did in the first interview. As this was happening, police were also searching his home and seizing several items, including a shovel and gardening tools. After a few hours of being interviewed, John spoke with his family. Whatever this conversation with his family was clearly triggered something in John's head, because when the interview recommenced, John Sharpe confessed to killing his wife Anna and his 20-month-old daughter Gracie. The reason John Sharpe gave police as to why he did this, why he killed his wife and daughter, was because his wife was controlling and moody, is a quote, and he was unhappy in his marriage, and he said he just snapped. As to why he killed Gracie, he stated, "I was thinking of taking care of Gracie myself, and just amongst all the madness, that's when I lost the plot." It was also claimed by some family members that it's possible Anna discovered a dark secret from John's past, and that was that he had sexually abused a child. A woman came forward after John Sharpe's arrest saying that when she was a child and John was a teenager, he had abused her. Now, at this point, no charges have been laid, and I don't know what's happened with this claim, so take it with a grain of salt. It is thought by some, however, that Anna possibly found this out, or even worse, found out that her husband had been abusing their daughter. Unfortunately, this confession from John Sharpe was not the end of the nightmare for friends and family of Anna and Gracie Kemp, and I'll be referring to Anna and Gracie by Anna's maiden name for the remainder of this video, because not only is this what they're now referred to as in the media, but at their resting place they have Kemp written on their cross or gravestone, I'm not sure what the proper word is. So when police asked John where he had hidden his wife and daughter's bodies, he said he had dumped them in the Mornington landfill. It took many grueling hours, days and weeks for police workers and volunteers to dig through every square inch of that asbestos-filled landfill, 5,000 cubic meters to be exact. Some officers even volunteering their days off to recover the bodies of both Anna Kemp and Gracie Kemp. It was also late June at this point, which meant the search had been wet, muddy and cold. After a few days of searching, some of Anna Kemp's remains were found, followed not long after by the discovery of Gracie Kemp. It was not until late July, however, that all of the remains were uncovered from the landfill. So now we're going to backtrack for a moment and talk about exactly what happened to Anna and Gracie Kemp, and how John Sharpe kept this heinous crime a secret for several months. And of course, we're also going to talk about the fact that Anna was pregnant, 5 months pregnant, with her son Francis, and what happened there. So back in 2003, John Sharpe visited a local sporting store in Mornington and, seemingly out of the blue, purchased a high-powered spear gun. Now, if you don't know what a spear gun is, I'll pop a photo up on screen now. A spear gun is traditionally used for spear fishing, and in addition, John purchased an additional spear with the high-powered spear gun. Despite this brand new purchase, John Sharpe had no plans to, and had never shown any sort of interest in spearfishing. John took his newly purchased spear gun home and began practicing in his backyard to familiarize himself with his brand new purchase. On the day John alleged that Anna left him or disappeared, the couple actually got into an argument before they went to bed. They went to bed still on bad terms at around between 9 or 10 p.m. that night. As Anna fell asleep, John was lying in bed, wide awake, seething over their argument. He eventually decided to get out of bed and head to the home's garage to retrieve his spear gun. He returned to the couple's bedroom, spear gun in hand, and aimed the spear at his sleeping wife's temple. John Sharpe fired the spear gun into his wife's head at close range, but noticed his wife was still breathing, so he fired a second spear into his wife's temple, and this is when Anna Kemp stopped breathing. John covered his wife's body and head in towels before heading downstairs to sleep on the sofa bed, and little Gracie was also asleep at this time. The next day, John went back to his wife's deceased body to retrieve the spears. However, he couldn't actually get them out of her head. So he basically removed the shafts by unscrewing them from the head. John then left his deceased wife lying in their bed and took his daughter Gracie to daycare. And it was of course during this day that the TV serviceman came to do the repairs that Anna had pre-arranged. And now it makes sense as to why John Sharpe did not want to let this man in his house, because his dead wife was lying in their bed. Later that day, he buried his wife in a shallow grave in his backyard, which he had actually pre-dug. And after this, he went to pick up his daughter Gracie from daycare, which is when he told them that Gracie would not be returning to that daycare. At some point within the next few days, John Sharpe returned to the sporting store in Mornington, where he'd purchased his spear gun to purchase two more spearheads, and he was accompanied by his daughter Gracie on this day. 4 days after his wife's death, on the 27th of March 2004, John Sharpe put his daughter Gracie to bed in her cot at around 9 p.m. that night, before proceeding to drink several whiskey and cokes to, quote, numb his senses. After several drinks, John proceeded to his garage to retrieve the spear gun, the same spear gun he had used to kill his wife just days earlier. He loaded his spear gun up with the new spears he had purchased with his daughter Gracie, just let that sink in for a minute, and proceeded to aim the spear gun at his sleeping daughter's head before firing it into the little girl's temple. Unlike Anna, who had really not flinched after being shot, Gracie woke up hysterical and started screaming and crying, and I don't think John expected this reaction. He quickly went to his bedroom and retrieved the two spear shafts he had removed from his wife's head days earlier, and shot little Gracie 2 more times. This, however, still did not kill her. So John was actually forced to remove one of the spears from his daughter's head, as he had actually run out of spears, and have to use that to shoot her again. This was the shot that killed little Gracie. The next morning, John returned to Gracie's cot to remove the spears from her head. And in typical John Sharpe fashion, being the coward that he was, he actually had to cover his face with a towel so he couldn't see the damage he had done to his young daughter. He then proceeded to wrap up her little body in garbage bags and a tarp before bounding her body with black duct tape. He then dumped little Gracie at the Mornington Refuse Transfer Station, basically a rubbish tip, along with the spear gun, the spears, and some of Gracie's clothing and toys. He literally disposed of his young, innocent daughter like she was a worthless piece of trash. On the 29th of March, which was about a week after John killed his wife Anna, he made a trip to his local Bunnings store, which is a hardware store here in Australia, where he purchased a roll of duct tape, 2 tops, and an electric chainsaw. He returned home with his Bunnings purchases and proceeded to exhume the deceased body of his wife. Then he took the electric chainsaw and cut up his wife's body into 3 separate pieces. He wrapped Anna's remains up in tarp and duct tape and disposed of them as he had with his daughter Gracie at the Mornington tip, throwing his wife away literally like trash, like a piece of rubbish, like her life meant nothing. And I mentioned earlier on in the video that on this day, Anna's family back in New Zealand received an email from Anna, which of course was John, who was emailing them from Anna's email account, trying to trick them into believing Anna was alive and well, which of course they didn't buy into. And of course it had been John who had sent Anna's mother Lily a card and flowers for Mother's Day and her birthday. And of course it had been John, if you hadn't guessed, using her credit cards, bank cards, Visa cards, and her mobile phone. This case became known in the media as the Mornington Monster or the Speargun Killer. John Miles Sharpe pled guilty in 2005 to killing both his wife, Anna Kemp, and their 20-month-old daughter, Gracie Kemp. He was diagnosed as depressed at the time of the murders, but not psychotic. He was sentenced to 2 consecutive terms of life imprisonment with a non-parole period of 33 years. And I'm sorry, this is a weak sentence for what he has done. Considering this was back in 2005 and we're coming into 2020, he's coming up to half of what could be a potential 33-year sentence, which I think honestly is disgraceful. And what's even more infuriating in this case is that John Sharpe could not be charged over the death of his unborn son, Francis, which, I mean, in my opinion, John Sharpe has killed 3 people, not 2, yet he is received the lightest sentence for how horrific. This is probably one of the worst crimes I have read, and it makes it even worse that 2 children died. Funerals for Anna and Gracie were held in both Melbourne and New Zealand. Anna and Gracie were laid to rest back with Anna's family in Dunedin, New Zealand. As I stated earlier, they were buried under Anna's maiden name of Kemp. Gracie's birth certificate was also posthumously edited to read Father Unknown. And that brings us to the end of this horrific, I mean, there are no words. That brings us to the end of this case. Thank you so much for listening to the stories of Anna and Gracie Kemp. Let me know your thoughts below. Like, comment, subscribe, share, all that fun stuff. Until next time, guys, stay vigilant, stay safe, and I will see you soon.